Great. So thank you, everyone. It looks like everybody's in now for joining us today for the launch of Bird Arsonist by Gary Barwin and Tom Prime, which published just this last week. I have a few housekeeping notes before we get started. First and foremost, this launch is being recorded and will be available online in the next few days. Keep an eye on our social media at New Star Books, or keep an eye out for our email newsletter for when that's available. Secondly, we'll be having a little bit of a Q&A session towards the end of the launch. You can use the chat function for those questions or just to say hi to whoever else is around. We also have the wonderful Kathryn Mockler doing a guest reading in just a little moment. But for now, I have the pleasure of introducing our host for the evening, Elee Kraljii Gardner. Ellie is the author of 2 poetry books, Trauma Head, the winner of the Fred Cogswell Poetry Prize, and Serpentine Loop, shortlisted for the Raymond Southster Award. An experienced mentor, Elee is the founding director of Thursday's Writing Collective, which supported emerging writers from Vancouver's downtown east side. And I will hand it over to Elee now.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And hi, everybody. It's so great to see everybody spread across all these different time zones. Welcome to the launch of Bird Arsonist, a book written by 4 hands of Gary Barwin and Tom Prime, and published by New Star Press. I hope that you'll all go to your local independent bookstore and purchase several copies. And as Melissa mentioned, Kathryn Mockler is here tonight too, and that is extremely exciting. I'm going to be your host this evening, and I just wanted to start out by offering everybody to take an enormous deep breath, all of us together, to just come into the space together. We can't be in the room, but we can pretend. So I hope you're all comfortable and have a glass of water or tea or something stronger as we get to celebrate this fantastic second collection of this collaboration between these two. I'm on Coast Salish land, specifically the territory of the Musqueam people. And I invite you to use the chat, not just for supportive comments for the artist, but also to tell us where you are and what territory you're on. And as we welcome these new poems into the world of Canadian literature, I think it's a really great time to think about the poems and stories that have filled these lands for centuries before us, and to think about how and what we choose to listen to. Bird Arsonist, which is right here over my shoulder like a good bird, is a book of poetry that sets alight any transparent, easy, lawful language, or is precisely what language spits out as it turns to ash. It's a collaboration and exploration by 2 people, Gary and Tom, who also share some videos they've made in conjunction with the text. So the flow of the event this evening is, first, I'll read the 3 readers' bios, and then we'll watch a video by Gary. Then we're going to hear a reading from Kathryn. And then Gary and Tom, and then we're going to have a short Q&A that you're all welcome to participate in. And then we're going to close with a video from Tom. So tonight's readers are Gary Barwin. He is a writer, composer, musician, and multidisciplinary artist, and has published 25 books of fiction, poetry, and numerous chapbooks. His latest books include For It Is a Pleasure and a Surprise to Breathe, New and Selected Poems, edited by Alessandro Porco, and Nothing the Same, Everything Haunted, The Ballad of Motl, the Cowboy. His national best-selling novel, Yiddish for Pirates, won the Stephen Leacock Medal Award for Humor and the Canadian Jewish Literary Award, and was also a finalist for both the Governor General's Award for Fiction and the Scotiabank Giller Prize. Gary is beaming in from Hamilton, Ontario, and I assume that most of us in this Zoom have collaborated at one time or another with Gary. He's very busy. Tom Prime is the author and co-author with Gary of several poetry chapbooks. His debut collection, a solo effort, is called Mouthfuls of Space, and it's scheduled for publication. Oh, Tom, it says it was scheduled for publication in the fall of 2021 with Anvil Press. I think that might have come out.
Yeah, it's already out. Yeah.
Okay. Fjord's Review, The Rusty Tooth, Lana Turner, Valum, and Watch Your Head, an amazing anthology that Kathryn is an editor and anthologist of. Tom lives in London, Ontario, where he's completing his PhD in English at the University of Western Ontario. And our third reader tonight, Kathryn Mockler, co-edited the print anthology I just mentioned, Watch Your Head, Writers and Artists Respond to the Climate Crisis, which came out from Coach House Books in 2020, and is also the publisher of Send My Love to Anyone, a literary newsletter that all of you can sign up for if you haven't already. Her debut collection of stories is forthcoming from Book Hug in 2023. So welcome and congratulations, Gary and Tom and Kathryn. And I would love it if we could watch Gary's video now.
I love that. I love that video. I'm joining you from London, Ontario, on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and Chinookan nations. And I'm so grateful to be here celebrating Gary and Tom on their wonderful collection, both of these poets are dear, dear friends of mine, and I'm just so thrilled to be celebrating with you both tonight. So thank you for inviting me, and thanks everyone for joining us tonight. I'm going to read, Gary does certainly get around, and so I'm going to read a couple of poems from the chapbook that Gary and I wrote together one August. I can't remember the year, 2017 maybe. Anyways, it's called Me Then You Then Me Then, and it's published by Knife Fork Books. And then I'm going to read some short prose pieces from my forthcoming story collection, and what's the difference between my poems and my stories. And I would say pretty much nothing, just what I call them. So my poems are narrative and my stories are short. Telepathy. If you want to draw a picture of a tree, then draw a tree. And while you do that, I'm going to communicate with the color as the rock. And if I hadn't looked down, he'd be gone, just like the snail I crushed in the driveway 2 summers ago, when I was wearing flip-flops and not paying attention to where I was going. I'm using telepathy on the frog, and so far it's working. He's speaking to me and I'm speaking to him, but neither of us can understand what the other is saying. There may be some interference on our connection, but we've agreed not to trouble ourselves. And it is trouble, trying to investigate things that aren't working. No, it's not a phone line, but works sort of like a phone line, only it's invisible and there's no repair person we can call. If the snail and the frog live, then everybody wins. And that is all I have to say about nature. And now I have to do something. You cannot read with a cough drop in your mouth. Okay, thanks. Forgive me. Blue teacup. The blue teacup purchased from the thrift store is communicating with me telepathically. It tells me what time to go to bed and which restaurants will give me food poisoning. It's good to have friends in high places. The blue teacup demands I leave it on the counter beside the sink, and I follow these instructions. And if I follow these instructions, it won't let anything bad happen to my family. This is a shakedown. But I decide not to question the teacup's authority because you never know. If this is a dream, it's not a nice one. The nice dreams are the ones where I'm floating up to the 22nd floor and watching you on the inside finish your seafood plate. You're not allergic to seafood, but I am. I try to tell you this as you grin and hold up your lobster, but you can't hear me. Glass. Too bad. I also had a joke I wanted to tell, but I guess I'll save it for another levitation. The next series of whatever I want to call these things, poems, short prose work, flash fiction, are forthcoming in my book from Book Hug in 2023. There's a series in this book about stories told from the point of view of the past and the future who are personified. The Dream House. The future had bought some land and was building their dream house with their own 2 hands. And even though the work was difficult and back-breaking, they felt they were up for the challenge because they were considered handy. The past was standing behind the future in yellow overalls and a backwards baseball hat, watching everything the future was trying to do. Every once in a while, the past would cover their mouth in an attempt to control an eruption of giggles. After looking back at the past with a little glare, the future laid down some boards and hammered some nails, trying to ignore the rude and inconsiderate disruption. But the more the future hammered, the more the past giggled into their palm, and eventually the giggling turned into an outright laugh and then a high-pitched cackle, followed by a stream of tears. The future threw down the hammer and stomped over to the past. What's your problem? Why are you laughing like that? The past wiped their face and took in some gulps of badly needed air. I'm laughing, they stammered as another fit of giggles started to bubble to the surface. I'm laughing because when I'm finished with you, there's not going to be anything left of this place. Geese. What can be done about all the loudmouths? What can be done about the Canadian geese so they don't smell my fear when I walk by? Don't stare a goose in the eye. And when you pass, don't turn around to see if he is following you, because if he's not, he will start. He will make a point of it because Canadian geese know that above all else, fear is valuable. And I wrote that when I was teaching at Western, and the campus has a lot of Canadian geese on it, of which I'm terrified. The next poem is a dialogue poem, or whatever this story piece, conversation between two unnamed speakers. It's called Let's Say. Let's say you live on a planet with unlimited resources and a complex ecosystem, and all your activities threaten the survival of all species, including yourself. What do you do? Let's pretend happiness. What if scientists discover that Canada's warming 2 times faster than the rest of the world and no one does anything about it? I've seen that movie before. How does it end? Not well. Oh, someone will take care of it. No one's taking care of it. I know you're proud of yourself, but we happen to be facing extinction. Oh, it's not that bad. It's dire. Don't poison today with tomorrow. Worse things to come. Are you trying to make me feel bad? No, I always try to be the saddest person in the room. And they all just went about their business, and that was the end of the story. And I have 2 more pieces. This next one is called It's Anticipation That's Keeping Me Alive. If you're cold, take off your sweater and come inside. And if you need a drink, get it yourself from the beer fridge. I'm not the host. I'm just sitting here waiting to see what's going to happen next. It's exciting, even if on the surface, everything looks ordinary. The water glasses next to the table, the throw pillows on the green couch. The wind rustles the leaves in the trees while someone throws a lit cigarette into the street. In a moment, it might rain or maybe not, but it doesn't matter because it's anticipation that's keeping me alive. Yesterday, a snail crossed my path on the sidewalk. I picked her up and put her in the garden so she wouldn't get crushed by my foot when she hadn't even made it to the halfway mark of her journey. The snail's plight wasn't any of my business, but I have a savior's complex. I don't think she appreciated my intervention because she crawled into her house and didn't come out. Where are you on your journey? And what could happen that would make you retreat into your shell? I'm in the blue void, but something will happen eventually. I just know it. And my final poem is called Dark Thoughts. In the park, a dude abruptly says to his 2 old-timey hippie friends, I'm not into postmodernism and all that garbage. One hippie says, I'm not into parks. The park says, I'm not into dudes or hippies or squirrels or unhappy parents who scream at their children to stay clear of the road so they don't get run over by a bike or SUV. What would happen if I didn't tell them to stop running, one parent thinks to herself, which she shares with no one until her next psychotherapy appointment. The thought causes her a great deal of distress. To relieve herself of the guilt, she takes everyone out for ice cream and fries, but she won't let anyone enjoy the food. She tells them that what they are eating will clog their arteries. She tells them about carbs and bad fats and the new diet she's on and all that weight she lost. She wants everyone to feel as bad about themselves as she does about herself. The park says, if I have to see one more lover kiss another lover on the shoulder, something drastic will happen. Thank you.
Kathryn, that was amazing. Thank you so much for that. Please drop your links in the chat so we can find your newsletter and your book link too. We'd love to see that. And there'll be, if people want to ask Kathryn questions at the end too, one thing we can also talk about is how Gary and Tom know Kathryn and about those intersections. Gary, I loved your video, and I think it was like the perfect intro to this fiery world that we're about to enter, where I still haven't decided if the bird is the arsonist setting fire to things, or if somebody is setting fire to the birds. So I will just hand it over to you and Tom now to do your tag team reading, and look forward to trying to parse out what's what with that. And you're going to share screen sometimes, I think, too, right? So we'll make sure, Melissa, that you are taking care of that, and I'll mute myself now.
Thanks so much, Ellie. So Tom, here we are, together on screen, like we wrote the whole book together. So,
Yeah.
So it just feels like old times. We should maybe write a poem right now.
Yeah, we'll sit. And then we'll take 2 years to finish it after we.
Well, people will be with us, I'm sure.
Yeah, they don't have to leave. Yeah, they'll stay.
Maybe we should start before we read. We're going to read from our scintillating, like I guess literally, since the bird is fire involved. Maybe we should start by thanking some people. Would that be good?
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks. I mean, obviously, New Start, amazing. I'm so glad that you put this book out. Thank you very much.
So Rolf Murr and Melissa Swan and Vlad Kristash, and also the amazing design of the book, which was Oliver McPartland. So
and Donato, thanks.
And it was also, we had our friend Donato Mancini, who edited the book. And there was an earlier version, which was this big, long maximalist thing. And he advised us to make it minimalist. And so we went through a process of cutting out, 95% of some amazing amount of text. That was really, it was a really smart idea that he had. And I also want to thank also the blurbers. We have Felix Bernstein and Jonathan Ball also wrote lovely blurbs for us. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
and also just while we're thanking everybody, Ellie, thank you so much for hosting this. It's so great. And Kathryn, thank you for reading your poem story. You're always the person I go to for motivational quotes in any.
I love those poems. They're really great, really
amazing.
Cool. It's like a new kind of voice. Yeah, I like it.
Okay, so shall we begin?
Sure. Okay.
Presentation? Okay. And thank you everybody for being here, by the way. Everybody is here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it on a Saturday night, Saturday afternoon, when everyone is tired of Zoom. I really appreciate it.
So I have to do the Olus. That's the
so
first
our first
time.
poem is, you can turn to page 4 in your hymn books. It's called Blink. And you can, and also because a couple poems are sort of sound poetry-ish, we have the screen so you can follow and see the magic at work.
Okay. Olu.
I say, and do not protein.
Olu.
Helios.
Olu.
Canned island.
Olu.
DNA belly shack.
I say, and do not protein. It Helios. Canned island. DNA belly shack. All right. So next we're going to read Fair Semiramis. Fair Semiramis.
Earth is pedestraphon, except when it birds birthmarks, deadlines, the spacesuit indoors.
Fair Semiramis. When the writer whispers, the wound fills with kindling. Anonymous.
1. 4-bird tree grows, an earthquake.
In the garden, a dimpled plastic fan.
Boat screechings.
You're almost cigarettes.
Window, the dough light.
No platelet on which to land.
No writer filled with stitch.
Okay, so
The rabbit-mouthed lotus.
seed had holes head.
Blue dwarf.
The dog's wistful fields.
Arrhythmic.
Ionic feet or voltaic spondies.
Heat caged in erotic Manhattan.
We made a box of streetlight.
Sagged in Travelodge pool.
I don't remember what a dimple of.
Stranglemark said.
A wreath from the dog's phonemes?
Gills.
A fan?
An incubator taxi cistern.
2. Megaphone exit ramps.
Home the milk inked fervor.
Pushworm spindle phlegm.
The cloven descent lark.
3. Vacation for a week.
The pin feathers of Jim's wheel. The push cart dartboard. Stentorian, gritting a slip fire. I think we have some complicated communicational
The push for.
postmodern pyrotechnics
Are
happening
you,
here.
are you still?
So Tom, we
Gary,
lost you for a while.
I can't hear anything.
Okay, what's worse is this Zoom glitch is way more interesting than the poems that we wrote. That's this sort of, I feel it's like a problem. We're doing like this completely fractured sort of interesting navigation. So Tom will come back in a second. Absolutely, we're the communication is so contingent on it's so mediated by media, distance, time. Sometimes it is intersected by
Sorry, I got thrown out for some reason. I don't know why.
they can try and stop us, but they never can, right? We will continue.
Okay, so where were we at the push cart dartboard?
We were. Okay, the push cart dartboard.
Stentorian.
Grinning a flip fire.
4. Kids murky roof.
Grimace.
The rain dug foxhole.
Shiver dress.
Dragged from blankie.
Miser blades.
5. Lips of little milk.
Coked by skies.
Coupon gutted.
Semi-glee.
Syringe of baby.
6. U.S. thin proud.
Tombstone crypto.
That blush crimped.
Lemon blade.
Alphagetti skin hole.
Still housed a megachurch.
Crusty Hubble.
The dictionary purrs.
Beards. Burning my ox like lexical bones.
Blood limits. Moss snow patches.
The doily housed.
Bug fixes.
Pink antiquity.
Deer heat through splatter.
Trout colored.
Wood.
See the ligneous bellows.
gasps.
Our eyes.
Do you want to start this one? I've been starting them all.
Okay. Prior tongues.
Ate their hot face palm.
A hot wired egg therein.
I ruddied.
Bandaged the midnight feed hole.
Compression bed.
Furtive, boiled as glands.
The tide.
Unable to breathe.
Breathing.
Unable to breathe. Mid-mizzle. Mid-mizzle.
Livid donut fish.
Thin, rain-wrapped blunder furniture.
A lake like forest clod. Crumpled sandwich bags.
Did you not already give frowning brows?
Yeah, I don't squirrel gematria cracular.
Testimony where we recollect hair.
I spoke to Photoshop knees.
Too many walked about, punitive with sleeping bags in the zephyr-filled
By my R knives.
baby street. As furtive as they were waxwing, they have burnt illegal, crimpled, disc-like, sorrowful. If we were chipped in a stimp, then babbled, name meadow, I ate my zacum.
These are slick pieces of O.
Speaking pinions, arc welded under the bird stream, tenderstone, the fog lathe nipped blades. Times petrified
$4.76.
is a tree sheathed in money. Warble hum.
Ah, trans fat microwave.
The frontal lobe,
Huge as mice.
grief missile.
Poultice Edie Sedgwick Lebensstrom. Orbicular hen necks.
Poultice wig skull defibrillated debt magnet.
Poultice ultra thin pantomime.
Oh, babies soft as guns.
Babies soft as guns.
Equinox of the reaper.
Bird Arsonist. Bilious nerve endings not without nymph fish.
Having a bear in one's dreams is to have a bicycle.
Frankly, the is oversharing to be frightened.
Neither undertake, write, nor publish.
Reapers will speak impressionably. The casing of their brains, lighthouse?
Propose to become the nervous pal of shoulders.
I would not lose any of the milk toast pasture of fleshy pebble.
Blue, inhale.
These waves.
A word fitly spoken is what the sky looks like to a wheel broken near your sister's child.
And let me add this. The excellent library of wings.
I perceive boulders and small stones.
Lullaby sparrow may rend the knot.
Fob fitters with weapons of dew.
I shall stay by the
Windscreen jibe.
bones defy, whereupon
They shrink.
oh, this one, yeah, okay.
Yeah, you're welcome to you're welcome to follow along and sing in your own personal Oh, yeah. Whoa, 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 whoa,
Oh, 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 no, onion. It's
ontological, lip, observe, observe, open, lesson.
Salute, tooth lobe mole. Ooh, mega church. Oh ho! Oh, 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 oh.
0 int t8 equals open bracket 1 comma 0 comma 1 comma 1 comma 1 comma 2 comma 2 comma 1 and bracket semicolon.
Int t underscore 90 bracket 8 in bracket equals bracket 0 1 1 0 1 1 2 1 in a bracket semicolon.
Int t underscore 180 open bracket 8 close bracket 8 equals open bracket 0 comma 1 comma 1 comma 0 comma 1 comma 1 comma 1 comma 2 and bracket semicolon.
Int t underscore 270 bracket 8 bracket equals bracket 0 1 1 1 2 2 1 end bracket comma
O 0 O 0 O 0 O 0 O 0 O 0 O 0 O 0 O 0 O 0 O 0 0 O 0 O 0 O 0 O 0 O O 0 O 0 O 0 O 0 O 0 O.
oh oh oi oi oh 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 eh oh 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 ee oh ee oh 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 ee oi oi oh 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 ee hey oi oh zero 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 oh oh, 0, oh, 0, oh, 0, oh, 0, oh, 0, oh, oh, 0, oh, 0, oh, 0, oh, 0, oh, 0, oh, 0.
Actually, Tom, I think we should go back. We messed up one of the lines. I think we should do it again because
Let's start from the beginning, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone will appreciate that.
Thank you very much. That was I'm really thanks everyone for listening. And now I guess we have questions. If anybody has questions. And we're bringing Ellie back in again to.
Here I am. That was so fantastic to have the visual. And I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about some of the visual aspects of the book. I don't know if everybody's already got their copy, but you should, because a lot of the lines that you just heard not only were at the mercy of the Zoom mic, but also these short phrases that you heard, they really do dilate on the page in a way. It was interesting to hear Gary and Tom alternate in reference to how they wrote it, and we'll get into that. But Gary and Tom, could you speak about some of the visual poems that you've got in here and about the visual aspect? There's a teeth motif running through the book as well. Some of these poems include line drawings of teeth.
Yes.
Do you want to go ahead?
All right. Well, I think one of the things is we are interested in engaging in all of the resources that are available on the page, and to, I guess, to interrogate that, to question, to what are the assumptions. So having visuals, having kind of things that are blurred, things that are like stretched, images that are stretched, or that show looks like the kind of warped paper or something. I think that's also part of the kinds of the possibilities of communication. And there's like footnotes we have a number of other kind of modalities of possible what the technology of poetry as represented in the book, I guess, right? To that, so I mean, I think it is also, there is some element where we are engaging with kind of orality and AU orality and OR orality, and I think for me, teeth stand in for that, and also kind of about fragmentation and brokenness and like teeth to me in terms of the inside and outside as the kind of portal between the outside and the inside of somebody, but also language. They kind of mediate language, and they also create sound. Teeth without teeth, they're used in the production of sound, I think. And so then, but it's also then when we're reading it now, then that becomes to find a parallel way to perform it, to kind of communicate some of the things that we're thinking about. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it all seemed to, the visual poems, like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like we had consciously thought about any of it. It you know what I mean? It was, but I do think that is what it's about. Yeah, the language thing. But in a lot of ways, I don't know. It just feels like it's not. I mean, I think the way Rolf put it in the blurb at the back kind of makes sense. It just feels like we went through so much material that, like, I don't know, our voice, or it just seems to have evaporated, and whatever appears here is this, it's kind of like it wouldn't exist without all like the just looking up stuff on Google. Like, we would find all this information about and these images, and they would mix it all in. Like, it just I don't know, it just feels like such a, I mean, it appears like a thing that happened in the moment, but we spent so much time breaking down the language so that it became this strange kind of alien voice that I guess, like, like these like teeth or whatever, like these dismembered parts of these images of the body, dismembered from the body, I guess, in this very like specific technical way, I think is kind of what we're getting at, because it's not very, I don't see it as a very human voice, even though it is a human voice. It's because it's a lot of just like other people's stuff that we chopped up, and like, does that make sense?
I wonder if you could both talk about something Gary and I talked about when he was telling me about the book, which is the mechanics of literally how this book was created. Gary, you talked about the work in the Google Doc, and I wonder if you could both explain, express, or touch on the actual mechanism of the production.
Sure, and actually, just one thing just occurred to me, that what Tom was saying before, which kind of relates, because when we first wrote this, and I think I mentioned it before, it was this huge maximalist, vast thing that we threw all sorts of stuff, some of it from Google, some of it all over the place, we threw into this document. There's this huge archive of just like a cross section of a moment, and I feel like if that was a tree, we kind of have boiled it down to some kind of like maple syrup, kind of like some sort of syrup of it. So some of it stayed in, some flies are in there, some whatever, we kind of made an extract from it, I guess. And that, to me, that's part of why there's so many parts of language in there. Sometimes it's parodistic, sometimes it's earnest, sometimes it's an examination of language itself, that process. Sometimes it's about how meaning is constructed or not constructed. And so I think all of those things, that was in the how it was made, but the actual mechanics. So Tom and I, we've done this before, since we've lived in different cities. When we wrote, we'd go on Zoom together, and we would talk, but at the same time we'd have a Google Doc open. So sometimes one thing that I really liked about this collaboration is I might start writing a sentence, and by the time I get to writing the second part of the sentence, Tom would have changed the beginning. We were doing it really live, like the way you might do if you're writing your own poem. If you had four hands, perhaps, because you could change what you're doing in the beginning, but that kind of going back, fixing, but because it was really fluid together, which is a really different experience for me writing than normally. You're kind of more polite with people. You let them do their thing, and then you maybe do another, and then you discuss it, and as opposed to just feeling free to completely use anything that's happening as a live improvisation, kind of. And then we would work on it, and we would talk about it, and then we'd go back and edit like crazy. But again, editing together live on the same document, with or without talking. So anything was up for re-examination.
Yeah, I think our voice is not really so much in the writing, but it's in the cutting and it's the process of editing. I mean, it's like Donato had a huge part of that. It's I mean, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of trying to get away from these ideas about voice, like as Felix said, these like precious ideas about voice, where we each have our own individual perspectives, and they're very special. And I mean, we all do, but I mean, I think in the larger scheme of things, we're a lot I don't know. I guess I felt like our we're not as important as we think we are in the greater scheme
Wait a
of
second,
things.
what? Wait,
And
we never talked about that.
and that's kind of what I was, I feel like when you cram all this this information together, and I feel like that's kind of what, when it really gets down to it, we're pretty small in this universe, and we really don't know much of anything. And I think that working through that process and getting to that developing this like non-voice voice, it is an interesting way of talking about that.
I was thinking about Pound's, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was thinking about, Pound has that thing about the artist is the antenna of the race, or the poet is the antenna of the race. So just the idea of being an antenna, not that mostly I don't agree with Pound on almost anything, but somehow being a conduit, like to basically what our job is to listen to what language can do and what's possible in the culture, and then to explore that and to look for kind of, I don't know, places where there's lots of energy, and work with that to put those things that are energized together and to construct these little poetry machines that play on those energies and kind of flicker with different possible interpretations or intention. So that's not about our own personal psychological voice, as opposed to our own investigations, I guess, as a collaborative team, perhaps.
I noticed that some of the like supportive texts that we traditionally consider to be like book format, like the dedication or the acknowledgements, these are time-stamped the way that they would in a live chat.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you could speak to that, and maybe also, Tom, it touches on what you're talking about dismembering the human and going towards some sort of AI.
Well, yeah, it's kind of, we did the editing, so it's not quite like that, but the Google Doc, basically, without Google Doc, which is like it's a newish technology, the book would be impossible, would never have existed, right? So because we're able to make edits on the fly and work as if we are one voice, which we're not. That's the point. It's an art of it. It's artifice that, but it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that going back to like you were talking about the time stamping. So we were playing like in the acknowledgements and the in the dedication. So we're playing with the idea that this is a constructed text that uses technology, and that's how it was written, as we spoke about. But everything is like you sit down at your typewriter or your computer or with your quill pen, and you're using a technology that mediates, and particularly because this was between two people, we were really aware of the mediation. And so I think, and the page is a kind of technology for communicating in collaboration with the reader and the writer, and the kind of interpretive tools that we have. And so I think to play with some of those, satirically and playfully, but also in terms of like a real investigation as to what are our assumptions in that, like what are acknowledgements supposed to look like. Well, we have this acknowledgements, which we've really attached them on a bunch of like red herring-ish ridiculousnesses in there as well, but some of them, and then you have to assess, is that ridiculous? Is it serious? Is it expanding the range of reference? Is it kind of deking you out, and you think it's ridiculous, but it's actually serious? But is it, like, I think all of those possible strategies that I think in the heightened world of what poetry can be, and it's like an intensity of examining what language is possible and what referentiality and our assumptions are. So I think we were playing with that.
So the chat is lighting up with questions about the O poem in particular. So people want to know about the performance ability or legibility or pronunciability of those O's and zeros and the lowercase O's. I think you're reading it, but I'll read a couple of them. And Bob mentions that we have precedents of this in Dadaism, and I know that you both have an interest in surrealism and Dadaism, so maybe you can both comment on that. But about the O poem, Carl asks in that final poem, were the diacritics on the lowercase o's playing more of a visual or a pronunciation-based performance notation role, or equal parts, or either or both? And piggybacking on that, Brian asks, was the O piece on the page just a score, which you improvised around? I heard U's that aren't on the page. The difference between the letter O and 0 was also striking, not necessarily picked up by someone only experiencing the letters on the page. Is our appreciation of a work like this incomplete if we only know it in silence? And then Bob follows up with, where performance is concerned, is the text more of a score than it is a script? I tend to think score as in musical score, also in common with Dada.
Well, I before, yeah, I just, the numbers, that's Tetris. That's I guess that's the code for Tetris. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it definitely needs to be performed. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it becomes something totally different, especially with all those strange accents. I mean, I think it's a lot more of an improvisation, you know, that's sort of directed by the score than anything, because like I'm not going to be able to even follow that, you know, but that gives you a basic idea of what you're trying to get at or whatever. So it kind of opens up what, you know, like it gives you a structure, and then yeah, right, yeah.
I mean, I think for me, any kind of text, particularly this one, is a score. I mean, I think Bob's right in the sense of a score. So a score has greater or lesser amounts of specificity in the interpretation. So if you're given a piece by Bach, you might, and Gould may play, he's playing on the piano, which didn't exist at the time. He's making decisions about speeding up and slowing down, and some decorations. And it's a score is just, it's kind of a set of loose guidelines based on a kind of performative tradition. So I think poems are like that. Certainly we're aware when we're writing that, there are certain conventions which both relate to how the eye responds to a text, but also how it responds in terms of performance, in terms of rhythm, in terms of how somebody would read it. And so for me, like that, all those zeros, we created it on the page, being aware that it has a performative aspect to it. But I think that how you perform it, or you imagine it in your mind, looking at that score, as opposed to how you hear a particular realization of it, like we did. So I think that, like the vowels, because also the vowels sort of sometimes they mean something by themselves, those diacritics, and sometimes without other letters around it, they don't actually really, like the O with the I always forget, accent grave. Like, I don't know if it means anything particularly, devoid of also language cues, like which language are we talking about and all of that. So these are all sorts of things to make you look at and think about how it relates to sound and to performativity to me. So that's like those pieces were things that we, in terms of performing them, that we think specifically about those issues. But even with the regular poems, to me, like, okay, there's a caesura, there's a space. When should we switch voices? What happens when we take something that's semantically contained and we break it into two voices? And in what sense is that a score for realization? And in what sense is it not? And so it's an opportunity to give an interpretation as opposed to we're following what was written down. And I guess lastly, just because people were asking about Dadaism and sort of, was it visual, verbo, vocal kind of things that are all this kind of connection that they were interested in, and how the word, how language bursts beyond the page into performativity, as well as, for that matter, I mean, we're making all these weird sounds. My dog was going.
Oh, that was so great. I wish your dog was here.
Yeah, he's upstaged yet again by my dog. But so it's actually pushing kind of norms of social behavior. Like, okay, I don't normally do that. Well, okay, I do it quite a lot, but I don't normally in most social situations just do that. So, I mean, it is specifically playing with that in the way that Dadaism or surrealism would. And just actually one final thing. Our last book Tom and I did together, we did a lot with like fragmenting language and breaking things apart. Some of it coming out of thoughts about trauma and revisiting how human experience and bodily experience was examined and we was represented. And I think we sort of pushed that into exploring just more broadly how language is embodied or not embodied, or how it is, how it breaks apart, how it can break apart, and how much you can pull, stretch till it breaks. And then if it's broken, then what? You still see cases to the point where it isn't, you can't form patterns. I don't know if that's true. If you can, I think we always will.
Yeah, you always make associations. Yeah. Absolutely.
Before I ask my last question, I just want to throw it out to the audience if they have any more questions or comments to put those into the chat before we go to Tom's video. But I'm just curious, what did you figure out, or what are you still asking this work?
I don't know. You open the book. I don't know. It doesn't. It seems like I think aesthetically, it is. You know, it's like kind of like a question, like, but I don't clear kind of answer to it. But I think it's yeah. I don't think that there is really. It's like it's all about this massive overload of information or whatever to produce this book. I mean, nobody would know that from reading it, but like I feel like it's more about what you can do. I mean, what you can do with language, like what we are trying to do with languages, because like we would cut things up, like that's a pretty common thing, the cut up thing. But then we were like, I'm not really happy with that. So then we would like write into the cut ups our own stuff. And then we would cut that up and we'd, throw in some Descartes or some Freud or something, just, and then cut that up. Yeah. And those things won't even be there anymore. I have no idea who wrote any of these words, so, but I do feel like it's just, it's kind of exciting because you read it and I feel like, it's like something someone came up with in a dream or something, and then they forgot just before they woke up. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I think that you kind of can tell that there was so much in there, not specifically, but everything feels hyper saturated with reference because it came from a context, and then we kind of removed the context, but it feels like we wouldn't have got the hyper saturation without having had all that stuff around. And so for me, I think one of the things I like about it is it's unstable, but then it's sort of that instability stabilizes, which then creates some instability, and so the idea that it's kind of flickering between two states all the time is really it's really interesting to me. And so the idea of how to create texts that are really profoundly unstable, which means that they're full of some sort of energy, force field, some sort of thing, is really intriguing to me. Even when I look back at it to try and understand what was going on. Sorry, Lillian asked a question, which I will just answer, which is, yeah, did we have fun? It was actually really profoundly fun, because part of it also was
fun, yeah.
We went into it without any specific goal other than to explore it, kind of like engage with language and engage with the process of writing together. And so that's always really, to me, that's so fun, just to be able to explore without any limitation, just it would stay in the document, or how long it would be before Tom completely messed it up and took it off in some other direction, which was super exciting, because then I said, okay, but I never thought that could go there. And then this idea of like leaving my own brain behind and just sort of falling off on this sort of multiple mind thing where I just really didn't know what was happening most of the time, which to me, that's really fun.
Amazing. All right, well, thank you both for delving into that. And Kathryn, thank you so much for your beautiful reading. I can definitely hear echoes of friendship throughout these texts. So that's really cool. I guess I'll invite Melissa to play Tom's video.
Can I just say something? So Tom
Gary's video.
Well,
Gary.
Tom wrote this lovely song and then invited me to contribute. So I added sound poetry and saxophone. It's all distorted, the saxophone. And I then also, Tom and his partner Amelia gave me this bizarre little video of, there's Amelia. As Amelia, whose face you'll recognize from such things as the video we're about to play next, of them being weird with a bottle of, with a glass of ginger ale, plus making faces. So I took that all and made this really trippy video.
Okay, do you want to have the video play us out? Do you want us to all just exit when the video ends, or do you want to come back and talk after the video?
We'll just come back just to say thank you, basically.
Okay,
I think
super. Here we go. Cue video.
Workers lament the fish in tube side and internal review. In spring, a captain is here with nibbling ties over gowning dead ferns. Resuscitations upgrade of nonsense in the nose. I didn't know so. Donating babies to the government. I remember when death began. Donating babies to the government. I remember when death began. Donating babies to the government. I remember when death began. Donating babies to the government.
All right. Thank you
So
for
the
that.
message clearly there was to always wear a mask because there's COVID. I think it's clear.
Okay. Thank you for that PSA. Okay, well, this I think this concludes the beautiful launch of this incredible book, Bird Arsonist. Tom and Gary, do you want to say some goodbyes?
Oh yeah, I mean, thanks for everyone for coming out. Thanks, Rolf, Vlad, Melissa, Kathryn, Elee, right? Elee, yeah.
Ellie.
Ellie. I'm really sorry. That's terrible. But
Okay, you can do an e-poem.
Yeah, that's right.
I like that. Yeah. I was just I'm just so thankful for a new star for putting this book out. It's just such a weird one, especially nowadays for something like this to come out. I'm just so thankful, and I loved working with Gary. It was really fun. Yeah, it was one of the most fun projects I've ever done in my life, if not the most fun one. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you everyone very much for coming out. I just to echo it, I'm so glad that New Star was willing to go with I think it's really important to be able to be willing to read, to listen to publish books that are really profoundly different than what has any chance of having any sort of mainstream voice. And I think there's so many ways that we want to speak back to the complexity of experience and of language and of thinking about what books can be, and hopefully this is one, and certainly New Star has always been a champion of that. So thank you so much for everyone, and Tom as well. Even it was super fun to do this, and we meet once a week, and we're writing we continue to write. So it's because there's still lots of well, it was fun mostly, but there's also lots of questions and lots of possibilities that are open that we hope to explore. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and hope you all have a very good evening. Thanks, Ellie.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye. Nice to see you all.